Next time you try to bully Ifeanyi, you'll deal with me. The class went silent. Even Ifeanyi was stunned. Afterward, he pulled her aside. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, she said firmly. I protect my friends. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, he felt something stirring inside his chest that went beyond admiration. A statewide poetry competition was announced.
Ifeanyi had always loved the last seat by the window. It wasn't just a preference, it was a sanctuary. In the chaos of Kingsland Senior Secondary School in mainland Lagos, the window gave him a view of the dusty football field, the mango tree that swayed with secrets, and the noisy Okadas zooming past the school gate. Every morning he arrived early with his tattered novels tucked under his arm, claiming the spot before anyone else could. The back seat gave him space to disappear, into his books, into his dreams, away from the noise of classmates who called him Professor with mocking smiles. But today was different. As Ifeanyi stepped into SS2C that morning, he stopped short. A girl, tall, caramel-skinned, and exuding unbothered confidence, sat in his spot, headphones in, chewing gum like she owned the world. Her designer backpack sat next to her, screaming of money and class. His heart skipped a beat, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she was there, in his seat. He cleared his throat, trying not to sound rude. Hi. That's where I sit. She looked up, took one earbud out, and smiled faintly. Looks like I got here first today. The room fell silent for a second. A few students glanced back, already sensing drama. Ifeanyi opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. What was the point? He nodded slightly and walked to another corner of the classroom, clutching his books tighter than usual. He didn't know it yet, but that tiny moment, giving up his seat, would change everything. The buzz about the new girl spread like wildfire. Her name was Zainab, and everything about her screamed different. She wasn't just from another school, she was from a whole other world. The girls whispered about her iPhone, her clean accent, her wristwatch that glittered under the fluorescent light. The boys stared, not just because she was fine, but because she didn't seem to care. In Lagos public schools, most new students tried to blend in. Zainab stood out. Ifeanyi watched her from his new seat by the door. He told himself it didn't matter. He still had his books, still had his view, just a little sideways now. But something about her annoyed him. The way she crossed her legs like a queen, the way she answered questions without raising her hand, the way the teachers smiled at her, like they were seeing something special. She hadn't earned anything here, but she was already a star. That day, after class, she walked up to him. You like sitting alone? He looked up from the pages of Things Fall Apart. I like peace. Zainab raised an eyebrow. And you think I'm disturbing your peace? Ifeanyi didn't reply. He just went back to his book. Zainab watched him for a moment, then shrugged. Cool. Just don't act like I stole your throne. It's just a seat. She walked away with a bounce in her step. He tried to ignore the way her words lingered in the air like perfume. The weeks passed, and the rhythm of the classroom began to shift. Ifeanyi still kept to himself, still scribbled in his notebook, and borrowed novels from the old library. But sometimes, just sometimes, his eyes would wander to the back row. And sometimes, when Zainab wasn't busy laughing with the other girls or flipping her braids, her eyes would meet his too. It wasn't a smile. It wasn't a frown either. It was more like a silent curiosity, one that deepened with each passing day. One rainy Thursday, the teacher didn't show up. The class buzzed with noise and energy. Some boys started drumming on the desks. Others pulled out snacks and gist. Zainab, surprisingly, walked toward Ifeanyi's desk. She didn't ask this time. She just sat beside him. You read too much, she said, leaning close enough to smell like vanilla and rain. Ifeanyi didn't look up. And you talk too much. She laughed. Touché. They sat in silence for a while. The rain fell harder outside, painting the windows with streaks of gray. What do you want to be? She asked suddenly. A writer, he answered without hesitation. That's cute, she said. What about you? I don't know yet. Maybe a lawyer or a fashion designer or a traveler. she leaned back. I just want freedom. Their eyes met again. For the first time, Ifeanyi saw her not as a rich intruder, but as someone searching for something, just like him. Zainab started sitting beside Ifeanyi more often. She claimed it was for convenience, but everyone noticed. The class buzzed with gossip. Some said they were dating. Others said Ifeanyi was under a spell. He didn't care. She was smart, witty, and curious in ways he didn't expect. And beneath her glitter and pride, there was depth. One day, after school, they sat under the mango tree near the school gate. She asked him questions no one ever bothered with. "What's your home like?" she asked. He hesitated. "Simple. One-room apartment. My mum sells akara. My dad died when I was 10. She nodded, not with pity, but understanding. "Mine's big. Too big sometimes. We have 4 cars, a house in Lekki, a driver, but no one ever has time." For a moment, Ifeanyi didn't know what to say. Then he simply asked, "Are you happy?" She looked away. Sometimes, not always. In that silence, something shifted between them. Not love yet, but a bridge. A fragile connection that neither of them had expected, but both were slowly starting to trust. It was during literature class that Ifeanyi made her laugh. Really laugh. The teacher, Mr. Balogan, was talking about Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and how love defies all logic. "Even when society stands against it," he said dramatically, "love finds a way." Zainab whispered to Ifeanyi, "Sounds like a Netflix special." Without missing a beat, Ifeanyi replied,
More like a Nigerian version, where Juliet runs off and Romeo gets deported. She burst out laughing, covering her mouth with her palm. The whole class turned. Mr. Balogan paused, then smiled. "Care to share the joke, Miss Zainab?" "No, sir," she said quickly, still giggling. Ifeanyi grinned. It felt strange, making her laugh like that. It wasn't something he planned. It just happened. And in that moment, he realized something. Zainab wasn't just interesting. She was fun. She turned to him and whispered, "You're not so boring after all." Zainab was the first person to notice Ifeanyi's black leather notebook. He always carried it with him, even when he wasn't reading. One afternoon, while they sat outside after school, she snatched it playfully from his bag. "Hey," he shouted, leaping up. She flipped through the pages, eyes wide. "You write poems?" "Give it back," he said, voice low and serious. But she was already reading one out loud. Asterisk, "I sit by the window, not for light, but to watch the shadows dance. In silence, I become." Asterisk. She stopped and looked up. "This is deep." He reached out again, gently this time. "Please. It's personal." She handed it back, slower now. "You're a writer for real." He nodded. "I write what I can't say." For the rest of the evening, she was quieter than usual. Something about his vulnerability had touched her. And for the first time, Zainab felt like she wanted to protect someone. Parent-teacher day came with noise and tension. Students with wealthy parents showed off. Zainab arrived in a black SUV with tinted windows. Her mother stepped out first, tall, elegant, in a flowing abaya and gold heels. She scanned the school like she was judging its air. Ifeanyi arrived on foot, walking beside his mother in her faded wrapper and slippers. She looked worn but proud. She carried fried akara in a nylon bag for the teachers. When they bumped into each other near the staff room, Zainab greeted politely. Her mother nodded at them stiffly, eyes avoiding Ifeanyi's mother entirely. Later, in class, Zainab sighed. "She's not like me. We don't even talk at home unless it's about school." Ifeanyi nodded. "My mum doesn't speak much English, but when she prays, she makes heaven cry." Zainab smiled. "You're lucky. At least someone sees you." Their friendship was growing, but not everyone was pleased. One of the popular boys, Yemi, who had been trying to impress Zainab since her arrival, noticed the closeness. One afternoon, he cornered Ifeanyi behind the school library. "You think just because she talks to you, you're somebody now?" Ifeanyi didn't reply. He wasn't the type to fight. Yemi stepped closer. "Watch yourself, bookworm. Girls like her don't end up with boys like you." Zainab heard about the incident and confronted Yemi right in front of the class. Next time you try to bully Ifeanyi, you'll deal with me. The class went silent. Even Ifeanyi was stunned. Afterward, he pulled her aside. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, she said firmly. I protect my friends. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, he felt something stirring inside his chest that went beyond admiration. A statewide poetry competition was announced. Every school could submit 2 students. Mr. Balagan chose Ifeanyi instantly. The surprise came when he also nominated Zainab. Ifeanyi for depth, he said, Zainab for voice. They practiced every day after school, under trees, in empty classrooms, sometimes in whispers, sometimes with laughter. Working together brought out new sides of them, Zainab's hidden passion for words, Ifeanyi's growing boldness. You should add more fire to this line, she said one evening. Let the words punch, not just whisper. He rewrote a stanza on the spot. She clapped. See? That's power. The day of the performance, they stood side by side on stage, and the entire hall watched them with awe. Their poems didn't just speak, they sang. And when the results were announced, they both won first place, tied. They celebrated their poetry win at the park near the school. Not the expensive kind with rides, just an open space with roasted corn and siya stalls. Zainab wore jeans and sneakers. Ifeanyi came in his school sandals, still dusty from the road. They laughed, talked, and ate like children. And when it was time to leave, Zainab reached for his hand without thinking. It was a small thing, bare fingers touching, but it sent a rush through both of them. She didn't let go immediately. He didn't pull back. Did you feel that? She asked softly. He nodded. Yes. She smiled. Maybe it's the siya. But deep inside, they both knew it wasn't just the siya. After the poetry competition, whispers spread like fire through the school halls. Classmates, seniors, even junior students began to talk. They're dating. He's not her level. Maybe he's using her to shine. The attention made Ifeanyi uncomfortable. He was never one for the spotlight. Zainab, on the other hand, seemed unbothered. Let them talk, she said, flipping her braids. We know what's real. But Ifeanyi wasn't so sure. They stare in the cafeteria. The way teachers suddenly expected more from him. Even his own friends began treating him differently, some with jealousy, others with awe. He wasn't ready for this kind of fame. One day, he stopped walking with Zainab after school. He said he had to help his mom at the market. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. He needed space to breathe. Zainab noticed the change. He became quieter, more distant. She'd enter class, and he'd barely look up. She tried to ask if something was wrong, but he always gave short answers. I'm fine. Just tired. Had a lot to read. At first, she gave him space. But after a week, she couldn't hold back. Ifeanyi, she said after class, did I do something? He shook his head, eyes avoiding hers. No, it's not you. It's everything. What does that mean? He hesitated. I don't fit your world, Zainab. Look at you. Look at me. She frowned. Is that what you think? That I'm just some rich girl who doesn't understand life? He didn't respond. She walked away without another word. And for the first time since they met, the space between them felt like a wall. A week later, it rained again just like the day they first talked. Ifeanyi stayed back after class, sitting on the back stairs, drenched, notebook in hand. Zainab found him there. You always write in the rain? She asked, stepping under the awning. He didn't look at her. It's quiet when it rains. She sat beside him, silent for a while. I wasn't trying to change you, Ifeanyi, she said. I like you for who you are. The books, the quiet, the poems, everything. He turned to her slowly. It's not just that. People talk. They expect things. Let them expect. What do you want? He swallowed hard. I want you, but I'm scared. She reached out, gently touching his shoulder. So am I. And in the rain, their fears met halfway. They planned it carefully. No uniforms, no books. Just one Saturday afternoon, far from school. Zainab suggested the National Theater. Ifeanyi had never been there. She wore a simple gown and sneakers. He wore a faded shirt and jeans that barely fit, borrowed from his cousin. He felt out of place, but when she saw him, she smiled like he was the only one in the world. They explored the art displays, watched a short film in one of the side halls, and bought Puff Puff from a roadside seller. She laughed more than he'd ever seen, and he forgot the weight of people's opinions. "I like this," he said. "Just us." "Me too," she whispered. But as they walked out, hand in hand, a classmate saw them. He didn't say anything, just stared. And suddenly, the outside world came crashing back in. By Monday, the entire school knew. Photos of them at the National Theater floated across WhatsApp groups like wildfire. The same classmate who saw them had snapped a picture and sent it around. Some students clapped and teased. Others made cruel jokes. A few teachers looked disappointed. But what hit hardest was the PTA meeting that followed. Zainab's mother was furious. She called the school and threatened to transfer her. "I didn't bring her here to fall in love with a poor boy," she shouted. Zainab cried that night, not because of punishment, but because she felt something precious slipping away. Ifeanyi, meanwhile, felt ashamed. Not Zainab, but of being a reminder of what society told her she shouldn't want. The story that started with a seat by the window was now under fire, and neither of them knew how to keep the flame alive. Zainab's home turned cold overnight. Her mother banned her from using her phone and switched her school driver to someone stricter. She was forbidden from speaking to Ifeanyi. "Focus on your future," her mother said, "not distractions from the gutter." Zainab felt trapped. Her life was scheduled to perfection: classes, extra lessons, religious programs, but no joy, no space for herself, and definitely no Ifeanyi. In school, she avoided eye contact. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. Her mother threatened to withdraw her completely. Ifeanyi understood, but it still hurt. He watched her walk past him in the hallways, surrounded by silence, holding back tears that only he could see. They were both living half-truths now, present in school, but absent from each other's lives. One Friday afternoon, Ifeanyi found a folded piece of paper in his locker. The handwriting was familiar, sharp, stylish, with loops on every Y. "I miss talking to you. I miss laughing. I miss us. I don't know how to fight my mom, but I haven't stopped thinking about you. Don't give up on me. Z." He read it 5 times before sliding it into his notebook. The next day, he wrote back, slipping a letter under her desk when no one was watching. "I'm still here, still watching you walk past every day like a dream I can't touch. Maybe we can't be public, but I'm still yours, Ifeanyi." From that moment on, they became secret pen pals. In the midst of noise, they found a way to whisper again. A few weeks later, the school organized a trip to Badagry for SS2 students. A history excursion, open to all. Somehow, Zainab's mother allowed her to go. Maybe because it sounded educational. Ifeanyi and Zainab were careful on the bus. No touching, no talking. But when they arrived at the Slave Museum, something shifted. They stood before chains and stories of stolen futures. The pain in the air was heavy. Zainab reached for Ifeanyi's hand. No one noticed, and if they did, they didn't speak. "This place," she whispered, "it makes you think about what really matters." He nodded. Freedom. Love. Being seen. That day, they didn't just learn about the past. They saw their present in a new light, and their fight for love as part of something deeper. Exams drew closer. The school tightened up. Less drama, more study. Zainab and Ifeanyi still wrote notes, now hidden in textbooks and lockers. Each one more daring, more vulnerable. "I read your poem last night. The one about the broken spoon. It made me cry. I dreamt of you. In the rain. Like that day under the awning." Ifeanyi, meanwhile, felt ashamed. Not Zainab, but of being a reminder of what society told her she shouldn't want. The story that started with a seat by the window was now under fire. And neither of them knew how to keep the flame alive. Zainab's home turned cold overnight. They began to meet secretly again. 5 minutes after school. behind the science block. Just to talk, sometimes just to hold hands. It was risky. One wrong move, and everything would shatter. But they needed those moments. In a world full of expectations, this was their rebellion. Not loud, not violent, just love, raw and real. One day, Zainab's closest friend, Toke, caught them behind the block. She didn't say anything at first, just smirked and walked away. By the next morning, Zainab was called to the principal's office. Her mother had been informed again. There was another picture. Another scandal. Zainab confronted Toke. Why would you do this? Toke shrugged. You were changing. You think you're better than us? Falling for that broke boy, like you're in a movie. Zainab slapped her. Tears in her eyes. That day, her phone was confiscated permanently. Her mother screamed, "You've embarrassed us enough. If this continues, you're going to boarding school in Kano." Ifeanyi didn't hear from her for days, and in the silence, his heart broke a little more each hour. Zainab's absence was louder than any noise. For 3 straight days, her seat remained empty. The teacher barely addressed it. Students gossiped. Some said she was expelled, others said she was transferred. Ifeanyi said nothing, but inside, he was unraveling. He tried to write, but the words wouldn't come. His notebook stayed open, page blank, pen untouched. He missed her laughter, her questions, the way her presence made everything brighter, even the gray walls of their classroom. On the 4th day, she returned. No makeup, no earrings, head covered, expression empty. She didn't look in his direction once. And just like that, it felt like everything they had built was slipping away into the silence again. That night, Ifeanyi took a risk. He wrote her one last letter, not poetic, not clever, just honest. He folded it carefully and slipped it into her bag when no one was watching. I don't care if the world disapproves. I still remember every moment with you. I still choose you. And I'll wait for as long as it takes. Ifeanyi. He waited for days. No reply. Then, during lunch, she walked past him and dropped a piece of paper by his chair without stopping. I choose you too. But I don't know how much longer I can keep fighting alone. Z. It wasn't joy. It wasn't despair. It was the raw middle ground of love caught between longing and limits. The school counselor, Miss Ayabo, began calling students for career planning. Ifeanyi said he wanted to be a writer. Zainab, now more subdued, said she wanted to study law. When Miss Ayabo asked if either of them had any distractions or concerns, Zainab said no, but her eyes told a different story. Later that day, Zainab pulled Ifeanyi aside. Our dreams don't match, Ifeanyi. He frowned. Since when did that matter? My mom says I'll study abroad after SS3. She's already talking about Canada. You'll be here, writing poems in dusty notebooks. So you're giving up? She didn't answer. Just looked down, ashamed of the truth she didn't want to say out loud. The school announced a speech competition themed, Choosing Your Future. Zainab was selected to represent their class. She almost declined, but changed her mind at the last minute. When she walked onto the stage, the room quieted. Even Ifeanyi leaned forward. She spoke without paper, from her heart. Everyone tells you who to be. Your parents, society, even the mirror. But what if the future we're meant for doesn't follow their rules? What if happiness is in the things they call mistakes? The hall clapped. Some teachers nodded in surprise. But Zainab only looked at one person just once, at the back of the room. Ifeanyi. And in that single glance, he knew her heart still belonged to him. A week later, Zainab didn't come to school. This time, the rumors were true. Her mother had sent her away, boarding school in Kano. The decision had been final. No warnings. No goodbyes. Ifeanyi didn't cry in public. But that night, under the same awning where they once sat in the rain, he wept like a child. He wrote a final poem. You were my window. Not the one by my seat, but the one in my chest. The world is darker now. But I'll keep looking out, hoping you return. And with each day that followed, he carried her memory like a quiet ache in his chest. But life, as always, moved on. Zainab's seat by the window remained untouched for weeks. No one dared sit there, not because of fear, but because it felt sacred, like a shrine of a love that once bloomed, now frozen in time. Ifeanyi continued his routine, class, books, home, helping his mother, but the spark was gone. Even his notebook gathered dust. The teachers noticed the change. He still performed well, but the soul in his voice during literature class had dulled. Mr. Baligan stopped him one afternoon. "You're carrying something heavy, Ifeanyi. I can see it in your eyes." He nodded, unable to speak. The man smiled gently. "Pain passes. But if it inspires your writing, let it bleed onto the page." That night, Ifeanyi picked up his pen again, for her, for himself, for all the things left unsaid. Weeks turned into months. Ifeanyi wrote Zainab letters every weekend, long ones filled with poems, stories, even jokes. But he never posted them. He kept them in a shoebox under his bed. Sometimes, he'd reread them and imagine she was doing the same in her new school. He wondered what her days were like. If she laughed. If she cried. If she ever whispered his name into her pillow at night. One Saturday, he walked to a post office with one of the letters in his pocket. He stood at the counter for several minutes, then turned and walked away. Some loves aren't ready for paper. Some hearts are still healing. SS3 started. It was supposed to be exciting, new teachers, preparation for WAC, future dreams taking shape. But for Ifeanyi, it just meant school without Zainab. One new girl named Halima joined their class. Friendly, bubbly, always smiling. She tried to sit near him once, but he politely declined. He wasn't ready. During literature class, they read Purple Hibiscus, a story about broken homes, resilience, and silent love. It hit too close. That night, Ifeanyi wrote in his notebook, "Love doesn't die. It goes underground, waits for rain, then grows wild again." He didn't know it yet, but rain was coming. The Lagos State Literary Fair was a big deal. Top SS3 students were invited from across the state. Ifeanyi was chosen again. His writing had been gaining attention. He arrived at the fair, excited, notebook in hand, ready to hear new voices and see new worlds. And then he saw her, Zainab. She stood by a bookstand, flipping through a poetry collection. Her hair was shorter now. She wore glasses. She looked older, wiser, even more beautiful. Their eyes met. Neither moved at first. The noise of the fair faded. The world paused. Then she smiled, small, hesitant, but real. And just like that, the story wasn't over. They found a quiet bench by a sculpture garden outside the hall. "I wasn't sure you'd still remember me," she said. "I never forgot," he replied. They talked for hours. About Kano. About books. About the nights she cried and wished she'd stayed. About the letters he wrote but never sent. "I wrote you too," she confessed. "My mom burned them when she found out." They sat in silence for a while, hands inches apart. "I don't know what happens next," she whispered. He turned to her slowly. "Then let's write it together." Their hands touched, no longer trembling, no longer hiding. Just two hearts reunited. Beautiful. After their reunion, Ifeanyi and Zainab began seeing each other again. Quietly, intentionally. No school uniforms. No hidden glances. Just them. One Sunday, they met at Freedom Park. It was Zainab's idea. Someplace public, but peaceful, she'd said. Ifeanyi came in a clean shirt his mom had ironed twice. Zainab wore a simple dress and smiled like they'd never lost time. They walked along the garden paths, sharing suya and soft drinks. He told her about his WEC preparations. She told him about how strict boarding school had changed her, made her appreciate the things she once took for granted. "You look different," he said. "You too," she replied. More steady. When the sun began to set, they sat on a low wall and watched the sky fade into purple. "If this is all we get," she whispered, "it's enough." But deep down, neither of them wanted to stop there. The time for university applications came quickly. Counselors urged students to apply early. Friends began dreaming out loud, Unilag Covenant abroad. Zainab's mother had already made plans. Canada or nothing. She was pushing for McGill, even booked a visa consultation. Ifeanyi had one plan, Unilag. It was affordable, close to home, and had a decent literature department. He didn't want to be far from his mother, whose health had started to weaken. One evening, Zainab said softly, "What if we end up in different worlds again?" He held her hand gently. "Then I'll write letters again. And this time, I'll send them." She smiled, but her eyes glistened with the fear of losing him again. They had always been careful, meeting in public places, avoiding gossip, keeping their relationship quiet. But one Friday after school, they stayed too long behind the science block, lost in laughter, then in each other's eyes, then in a kiss that was soft and slow, full of all the missed moments they'd carried in silence. That kiss crossed an invisible line. Neither of them said a word, but they both knew it changed something. The danger wasn't just society now. It was emotion growing faster than caution. Love without guardrails. Passion awakening in the midst of pressure. And once again, the clock started ticking. Zainab's mother found out about the kiss. Someone, likely from school, sent her a picture. It wasn't vulgar, just close. Too close. She confronted Zainab the same night, holding her phone like evidence. "I warned you. You think love will protect you when life hits you." Zainab didn't yell back this time. She just said, "I love him." Her mother broke down in tears. "You're all I have. I can't watch you throw your future away." Zainab stood quietly, heart torn. Love had brought her joy, but now it brought pain to the woman who raised her. She wondered, for the first time, if loving Ifeanyi might mean losing everything else.